I've been running with Max the bass player since Christmas and sofas and working in bars since Molly. I gave Max the bass player my old bass guitar. It was dusty in my mother's spare room. My father told me, "You're in a story about working in bars, and this story begins in 3 parts." And I suppose it was about when I stopped playing guitar and I began playing taps. Taps like nipples, taps like dicks, beer like piss and cum and spit. I've been running around Hackney with Max, chasing the shapes of dogs' eyes. That's 1. So the nights were my favourite. Long London nights wrapped up on the sofa, all sofas that lasted forever. I moved to Hackney a year ago, to endless nights of tired feet still humming and cum down far from sight. Always a glass of water on the floor I kicked over. Always a rainy police car siren moaning, a love song sung to all the bartenders of London. And I am wrapped in Ace's spare duvet, in Theo's thick old throw with a map of the world sewn on it, in a towel or an old grey bedsheet with Max on the Shacklewell Lane. House-sitting in the gloam of street lamps that part the bars welded over the window from the days when that place was a motorcycle repair garage. Orange light always walking in through whichever window I'd most recently slipped through. Nowhere to call my own except my body, and even that was being shared. So the nights were my favourite, which is 2. Have you ever looked into a dog's eyes? The pupils are not round. I have astigmatism in my left eye, so I know. When I was 13, I stuck my hand down a terrier's throat to remove a chicken bone she'd been choking on. My mother once stuck her hand down my brother's throat. He had eaten the skin of a kiwi fruit, and it had lodged itself in there good. He was a child at the time. His throat didn't like it. It's all coming back now. The dog coughed up blood, but it was only a safe amount. It's all coming back to me. When I was a baby, or maybe 2 or 3, I tried eating a wasp I found lounging in a garden memory. Well, this is how I imagine it, anyway. There was an apple tree right in the middle, ivy on the walls, and the remains of a Thomas the Tank Engine bicycle that didn't belong to me. The wasp only managed to sting my lip. As you can see, my family has a strange oral tradition. It involves shouting. I stuck my hand down the throat of a little white and brown coated terrier to remove a chicken bone I'd given her 2 minutes earlier. Dogs don't pace their consumption or care what danger they're chewing, and I wanted to test the rumour that bird bones would shatter. But the chicken had been marinated in barbecue sauce, so who could really blame her? All the flesh was gone. She was happy when I freed her. She wagged her tail, but I was too ashamed to tell her, "Hey, it's all my fault." Of course she knew. I could tell by the look in her left eye. It had a corner. But that didn't stop her turning the other paw. Dogs will do it all for the love of their owner. And that's 3. The Queen kept leering at me, mocking, cashing tills, smashing bells, smells of brewers' yeast, of bugs, their feces, and families and drugs. The Queen kept changing faces when I opened the drawers for change. Horizontal folds around her cheek, and she looked like a deranged outpatient waiting for a bus. On a tenner, green fiver, green wrinkles crunched enviously out of some regular's drunken pocket. Half a barley wine, please. Bit early for barley wine, though. It's still warm outside. The Queen glows red like Beelzebub on a £50 note, conjuring, shining with skin less wet. We've got to check each 50 we get. There's some pretty good fakes turning up at the moment, but this time she wasn't mine, she was yawning. 7.4%. I'm a tap puller, no student or artist or writer, no cause but to put bowls before paws and pint glasses on banknote coasters. That's why Bose hired me, because I was good. And I think Dee had a lot to do with it too. Bose was telling me about when he used to work at one of the company's other premises, the Crown on Chapel Road. I got off a bus earlier and nearly fell over. My right leg was dead. It had been crossed for 55 minutes straight, 276 from Bow to Stoke Newington. First thing, 8 a.m, warm ventilators that spoke to me, made me calm for all the sleep I missed on the sofa, having spent the night with Molly, who had a real bed for $6.50 a month. I told her I couldn't see the appeal, really. But then perhaps she was more real than me. I wanted to cook for her, but I didn't have a kitchen. I only had an unfoldable sofa, but the frame was bent, and the mattress was stained and old. So Bose was telling me about when he first worked for the company, years ago, when he was lowered down on the employee scale like me. I was setting up the bar at the time. It was a 15-minute affair if you move fast. Get the glass washer on to warm up and the benches set down outside. Pavement swept. That left 45 minutes to convalesce before disengaging the anti-human bolt on the door. Well, I had my own set of keys then. That meant they wanted me forever. Bo said, "We had 5 ashtrays at the end of last week." I said, "We still have 4. He was flexing his Turkish muscles. I was flexing my bottle opener. "Didn't you get any sleep?" he said. I shook my head. "We went to Lisa's the night before and had a lock-in." "When I worked at the Crown," said Bose, "there was this guy wandering around the pub, looking like he'd lost someone. You know how it's set out over there. Not much bigger than our place here, but with more corners." And I said, "You right there, mate?" And he said, "I'm just looking for my friend. You know, he had those shifty eyes." And I was standing behind the bar, smiling like an idiot. Bose continued, "You haven't got any friends here, mate. And you know how a guy is definitely up to something. He acts all nice and charming, and then he fucks off without a warning, not even asking why." I told him, "You better leave." All nice and caring. And he said, "Okay. Definitely guilty." And he left with his coat hanging over his arm. "Remember that part," he said, pointing to me. But the manager," said Bose, as I was looking over the opening checklist, ticking off all the boxes, filling washer and sink unit with slice of lime or lemon catcher, which is really actually an old tub of mayonnaise some phantom bartender stuck a few holes in with a screwdriver. "The manager," said Bose, "because I wasn't the boss here yet. He was downstairs with a woman whose bag had just been stolen. And they were checking the CCTV. And they're looking and they're seeing this guy, the same guy who was talking to me, walking past her, not even lingering, coat over arm and slipping a handbag off the back of her chair where it was hanging and sticking it under his coat. And then watching me walk up to the guy and, like a total idiot, ask him to leave." "Shit. But that's nothing," said Bose, as he inspected some guacamole the chef was making, "because the next day, I'm walking along the street from Clissold Park to start my shift. And this was when I was trained to be manager, right? So I see this guy, the same guy. I run into the pub, I shout for my boss, and the boss comes out with me, and we run at this guy, and we get him pressed up tight against some shutters of a shop, and it was Boxing Day, everywhere was closed." I laughed. "Is that what about having Christmas?" "Right," said Bose. And I said to him, "If you move, I'm going to punch your face in." And Thomas, the boss there, he checked his bag, and you know what he found? What? A fucking ashtray. She said, "I read this article in the Daily Mail about, like, what if someone with Ebola didn't know they had it and somehow poured infected water from a glass they'd been using into the water supply?" She said this while rolling a fag. I was heating up a gram of cocaine on the hob, trying to break it down, and Nem was laughing. Nem was saying, "Think about where you read this." Molly said, "Yes, but how would they know?" I had just been to the shop with Molly's umbrella. It had been raining again because it was the end of the summer. "The water gets cleaned and filtered after it goes down the drain," said Nemesia. "Otherwise you'd have already drunk enough bad stuff to kill you 1,000,000 times, way before you even knew what Ebola was." Molly said, "I'm not even sure about that." I got back from the shop with less change in my pocket, but at least I had a packet of hobnobs. Nemesia was sitting on the windowsill smoking. I was leaning by the door to the kitchen, racking up lines and drinking wine. I said, "There was a scare in Lewisham recently. Some guy claimed he had Ebola, and when he went to a hospital, the staff went nuts. They totally panicked. They only had some rubber gloves, aprons, and masks to deal with a potential virus outbreak. There was an uproar all over the internet. I can't believe you didn't see it. The comment section was frantic, people getting so fucking frustrated because the hospital staff were so unprepared. They let them use a public toilet, apparently, and a payphone in the foyer." "Shit," said Molly, "really?" We'd given up taking it in turn to perch by the window, just closed the door to the hallway instead, lit more incense, and began smoking on the sofa and futon, dropping ash into empty wine glasses. "Yeah, I'm not kidding, it's in The Guardian," I said, "and it turns out he didn't even have Ebola." Molly shook her head. "I want to live in Islington," she said. I've been thinking about the first dog in space. Laker, part husky, Samoyed and terrier. She was a stray, a descendant of the hunting dogs of Siberia. She was also a type of beer. A canine namesake made with wheat. She had a herby taste, eyes that had seen more than mine, providing windows were built into her spaceship. It was late. A cheeky white terrier scuttled around the floor and condiment area. It looked remarkably like an old English terrier, but they're extinct. Molly texted me and said, "Did you get a chance to see the blood moon tonight?" But it was too low to see. Couldn't see the stars either. Light reflections on glasses polluting pavements with shards that punctured soles, tyres locked up in the gutter, arses that clattered back pocket keys when there were no more chairs left to fill. People stood, lethargic. I was getting angry at a customer for not paying enough attention to me. It was a passive anger. It started with bland repetition. Repeat the order back to him at a significantly reduced pace. He turned round to ask his friend which topping he wanted on his medium-well burger. It was cheese, no bacon. I was about to commence shouting, but then I saw his hearing aid, and I think the dog was part Jack Russell. Its tail was long and curved. Docking isn't necessary in the city. It's purely aesthetic. No risks taken. Dogs were disposable tools for fixing relationships, not for rooting out foxes and thornbush pheasant corpses. They were for wallowing in the glory of artistic poverty. But reality was rich. It was a better kept secret, and the dogs were fools for keeping it. There was nothing tamer than a fox strolling through temporary hunger. Now Laker was running the bar, taming every customer. Two guys walked in and said, "We want some lager. Cheap lager, cooking lager, tinny lager." "And what's a good cider?" Drunk and drunker, Molly texted me. She was dealing with estate agencies and the prospect of an expiring rail card. I typed no, the blood moon, then looked up at whoever was asking for beer. 22 years old, this one, and can't handle his beer, said my newest customer. I said, "Well, this is a good cider and this is a good cider. Do you want it still or do you want it sparkling?" The younger man said, "We're builders," said the older man. "We're professionals in construction," said the younger man, bowing. "How about this one?" I said, pouring them two tasters. "What do you think?" they said, looking at each other. "All right, we'll have one of them and one of the Camden." Money crossed over the cracks in every finger, cracks filled with ash and the dust of polyfiller, shirt stains, could be food, could be tar. We came straight from our site down an Angel, via a few places on the way. The younger man said, "I always thought bartending and building were a very similar type of trade. They're humble, practical, they're honest. Have you got any snacks?" "Well, we've got ready salted salt, vinegar, cheese and onion and sweet chilli. No crisps, nuts." The curly tail of the terrier sailed on the surface of floor-dwelling handbags, a great white shark that sniffed the blood of discarded dishes. The dog followed the trail 30 feet across the room, through the nasal din of cacophony footprints and spillages to where a group of drunken men had their food spread across the floor, the rot, the invisible cockroach eggs we had never truly got rid of. The dog's nose was very impressive. My senses were becoming shattered by even the sound of human din, my brain function reduced to automaton standards. When I approached the cellar door, after changing a keg or cask, I started to tremble. The noise from upstairs rushed towards me. The closer I'd get to turning the handle back up, and I'd begun to hope that the broken step on the staircase would break when I pressed my feet on it, and that I'd fall into peaceful darkness. Molly said, "Shame, it was beautiful." One of the builders, the older, amused, least drunk of the two, said, "Did you know this place before it was taken over? Before the bar was at the side and it was part of the middle interior? Nice bit of work there. I know a carpenter who worked on it. He didn't live around here anymore. Enfield's a lot cheaper." "I heard it was a dive bar," I said, "rough like a broken record." Timbo, fitting a new bottle of gin to the optics, laughed. "Well, my dad," said the younger man, with knots of blonde hair and a bent nose. "My dad, hey, how old are you?" 24. "Well, pleased to meet you," he said, holding out his hand, which was chalky and yellow as bricks, gritty. A good hand. "My dad used to come here too. There was karaoke until 4 in the morning." "Oh, but you were too young," said the older man. "I was too young," said the younger man, blinking wildly. In a swift fist-to-mouth manoeuvre, he sipped and swallowed some beer, asked me if I was a local. I told him, well, I don't have a postcode. Well, it's better here than Angel, he said. That's where our site is. It's a piece of shit there. Too expensive and close to the bullshit. They both smiled. In the corner, a bowl-cut man with a goatee was playing the flute. Do you live here? They asked me, and I said, well, I live in Stoke Newington and Clapton, mostly. Well, you do get around. Do you have a degree? And I said, no. Well, thank fuck someone around here hasn't. Everything's so up and coming. Even Walthamstow's on the way, which means it's a dump right now, but soon, mark my words. People don't need the fucking city. Better further out. Except then everyone realises and everywhere gets filled with Ponzi cafes and Ponzi beer. No offence. The younger man said, you know these Romanian people? Then paused, smiling at me, but more like through me to the broken tiles on the back wall behind me. They call them immigrants. They're all coming here and they're immigrants, but I think everyone's an immigrant because everyone's moving. I'm moving right now, and he was swaying. He started tapping his chest. The older man was shaking his head. You know what I say? Said the young man. I say follow your feet. Is that right? That's right. I've got a tattoo on mine. It says keep smiling. And that's me, and you've got to. By now he was on his second pint. You've got to be honest with yourself. So if I don't, if I don't keep smiling, then I'm not being myself. So I've got to trust my feet and always follow them. Your feet carry you, mate. You should always remember to listen. And I said, but what if you're so busy watching your feet that you don't see where you're going? And he said, aha. Just as another customer approached the bar, empty glass in hand. Looks like that man needs another, said the older man. What's your name again? The younger man asked, and I told him, and he said, pleased to meet you. I'm in construction. I'm a noble architect. Can't you tell? My father, well, he used to come here all the time. He designed the building and he built the bar, but he's dead now. I'll find a picture for you. I've got one. You probably know him. The older man said, come on, you idiot. Still shaking his head. I want a cigarette. Have you seen the moon tonight? Thank you.